Physiologically, we cannot feel fear or anxiety at the same time we feel gratitude. If that isn't a strategy for overcoming fear, then I don't know what is.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
Gratitude. Can it be a strategy? The topic of gratitude is obviously a big one. And oftentimes, I think we think of it as kind of a soft topic, as something that we know we should be practicing, but I don't know how often we actually think of it as a strategy. So this popped into mind a couple of years ago as I was interviewing all of these brilliant minds, highly successful and innovative people like Mark Cuban, Simon Sinek, Tony Robbins, Adam Grant, you name it, and gratitude kept coming up in how they navigate from idea to action. And so I started thinking about gratitude as a strategy and tried to change my frame and my lens a bit on this topic. And let me tell you what I've found. Just a heads up of how this episode is structured. So I am going to share what I've learned, and then my amazing mentor, who you've heard from in the past, Suzy Batiz, and I are going to have a quick discussion on gratitude and appreciation as a strategy. And then also I have some thoughts from you. I want to share some of the feedback that I've received from you in the private Facebook group about how you use gratitude, as well as a cool glimpse into a couple of things some of the listeners are actually doing. So back to my experiment. A couple of years ago, I started, looking at this term gratitude a little differently. And I started also researching the impact of gratitude, the science of gratitude. So I went into Google and I didn't just start reading lifestyle blogs and articles by anyone. I went into Google Scholar. So if you're ever curious and you really want to weed out and get to some of the legit scientific academic papers and research, go to scholar.google.com. All right, so I started there and started looking at the scientific benefits. Now, you're probably not surprised that there are a ton of articles and legit research around the proven benefits of gratitude. And so I will spare you from reading exactly what I learned, but just know you have access to that too. So we kind of intuitively know this, but I guess it just helps for me to see it from these doctors and psychologists and psychotherapists and all that kind of stuff. So gratitude in general, it opens the door to more relationships. It improves our physical health, our psychological health. We know that it enhances empathy and reduces aggression. We sleep better when we're practicing gratitude. It improves our self-esteem, mental strength. The list goes on and on and on, right? So now that we logically kind of get that, how do we actually practice it and use it as a strategy was one of my questions. And I don't mean to skip past all of those amazing benefits. Maybe you didn't realize all of the upside to gratitude and appreciation, but it's there, right? So if you're having trouble sleeping at night, guess what? Gratitude can actually help. If you're having trouble in relationships or with your self-esteem, again, gratitude is kind of like a magic pill, right? So the question now is, how do you apply that? Is it just kind of this soft topic that floats around that we heard about when we were younger? I know my mom is quite possibly the gratitude practicing guru, and she would always say, make a gratitude list if I was feeling down about my day or about what was going on in the world or something that happened. Even as a young kid, she would suggest this gratitude list. When we're that age, I think oftentimes we might just kind of shelve those suggestions from our parents and maybe a little eye roll. It depends on what age. But now I realize, okay, this gratitude list is not just a fluffy thing to do at Thanksgiving. It's actually a strategy. When I started interviewing all of these people and I would hear like Mark Cuban, for example, say, I asked him if he meditates. He said, I don't meditate, but I appreciate. And he said every day he makes a point to take a step outside, and if the sun is shining, if there's a blue sky, to stop, be present, and appreciate. As I started to think about how I could put this into my life, I tried a couple of things. One is both my husband and I, we made a calendar invite that says at 9:00 p.m. every night, I get a notification that says gratefuls. So basically, I list off my gratefuls, what am I grateful for, in my head before I go to bed. And I figure, why not, right? What's the worst thing that can happen if I do that? It's not like it takes a ton of time and energy. It's basically a mental gratitude list. But what I've learned after trying this, and even when that pops up on my phone and I see gratefuls, as I'm winding up my day, I've found it's a practice. And having these moments of being present and appreciating things throughout the day just happens a little more naturally, just like anything else. So it's completely a learned behavior. So if you don't feel like you're a very grateful or gratitude practicing type of person, you can be. You definitely can be. And what I've noticed about doing these gratefuls, or even if I'm practicing this throughout the day in just milliseconds, if something happens and I think through, wow, I'm really glad that happened, or wow, I appreciate the fact that this happened. What's interesting is it forces me to be present. And it also forces me to slow down and get out of my head a bit. So in a way, that's like a level set. That is a way to not only be present, but to take stock in a really quick instance. And it's amazing how that recalibrates me. So as I continue to, find these moments of appreciating things, I've found it's helpful to have reminders, whether it's in my calendar or even my screensaver. My screensaver literally says, gratitude is a strategy. There are these things, these moments, these triggers that we can place into our own paths to make sure that we stop and we actually take stock and appreciate something. Now, part of why I started this little experiment was because I had heard that physiologically, you cannot feel fear and gratitude at the same time. So if that's true, then gratitude is a strategy for overcoming fear, especially if you're in the moment. So let's say some sort of fear statement comes into your mind, that little voice that is always there, always chatting. If you take note and immediately switch and think of something that you appreciate in that moment, physiologically, you cannot feel that fear and anxiety at the same time you're feeling appreciation and gratitude. Okay, that's huge right there. Absolutely huge. So you can see why some of the most successful people, some of the happiest people, practice gratitude, because there is, in theory, less fear going through their mind. And this isn't my opinion, by the way. I had heard Tony Robbins say that gratitude is the antidote to fear and anxiety. And so, of course, I went onto Google Scholar and looked it up. And sure enough, not that I don't trust Tony Robbins, but sometimes my brain and logic just needs Google Scholar as a compliment to what I'm hearing. And I do love Tony. He's been on the show. But Dan Baker was one of the PhD psychologists that I came across who explains this whole process. And he says, during active appreciation, the threatening messages from your amygdala, the fear center of the brain, and the anxious instincts of your brainstem are cut off. Suddenly and surely, from access to your brain's neocortex, where they can fester, replicate themselves, and turn into stream of thoughts into a cold river of dread. It is a fact that the brain cannot be in a state of appreciation and a state of fear at the same time. The two states may alternate, but are mutually exclusive. Okay, so now that we know this, why wouldn't we use gratitude as a strategy? Not only does it make us feel better, of course, we've already discovered that, but it actually is a way to overcome fear or to turn off fear, literally. So I don't know about you, but this completely just shifted my thoughts around having a positive attitude and kind of making lemonade out of lemons to, no, this is something that can truly help me be the best version of myself and do the things that I want to do in this lifetime. It's kind of big. One of the number one things I hear from people that keep them from going from idea to action, that keep them from taking action on their why not now idea is fear. It's the number one thing. It's fear of what other people will think. It's fear of your financial situation not being stable. It's fear of not having what it takes. And so in this case, in the formula of how to be successful in getting across that bridge from idea to action, gratitude is a huge tool. Okay, we're going to switch gears for just a moment and bring in Suzy Batiz, who is my mentor. She had experienced bankruptcy twice by the age of 40 and then went on to build from scratch a $400 million company with zero investment, zero debt. She is the founder, creator. She talks about gratitude in a way that I have never really heard or thought of before. So appreciation, gratitude, here's a completely different look into things. If you want to hear more about Suzy, she's been on the podcast a number of times. You can't even make it up what she's been through and how much her life has changed. So this woman has been quite possibly the most impactful person in my life over the last couple of years, who has completely changed my frame and a lot of my behavior for the better. So here's my mentor and I talking about appreciation, gratitude, Suzy Batiz. We tackle the most taboo topics on the Why Not Now show. Oftentimes, you're hearing guests share things they've never shared before. In the spirit of things we don't typically talk about, you should know that the Why Not Now show is supported by Poo-Pourri, the original before-you-go toilet spray. It's magic. My friends at Poo-Pourri have literally taken the smell out of you-know-what. This pure blend of essential oils stops bathroom odor before it begins. Visit poopourri.com and Why Not Now listeners get 20% off with code WHYNOTNOW. That's all one word. And you can hear the story about Poo-Pourri in our interview with founder Suzy Batiz. That's Why Not Now episode 28. Poo-Pourri is also available at Bed Bath & Beyond. Suzy, welcome back. How are you doing?
Amazing. I feel excited to be talking with you.
Likewise, it's always a treat, and I feel like you're a regular now. So let's dig right in. I mean, you have
taught me a lot about gratitude, even indirectly, as I feel like you've taken me kind of under your wing. I just kind of want to open it up general and broad first and ask you, do you use gratitude as a strategy? And what does gratitude mean to you?
Yeah, I'm just remembering my mentors popping in, Gay Hendricks, and he taught me something that I giggle every time I hear it, but he says that gratitude and appreciation are the lubricants for life or for joy. They're the lubricants for joy.
That's awesome.
I think he actually says it's the lube for joy, and sometimes I get caught up in life and I realize that I'm not, slowing down enough to really appreciate. It's like those moments when we're super present and we can really slow down and appreciate that I feel particularly grateful. So I use it as a strategy and basically how to gauge myself. I know if I'm not appreciating and grateful of my surroundings, I'm going too fast through life. I'm just sort of running. And then it's like the whole, what is it? Stop and smell the roses. Mm-hmm. It's like that. Like you literally have to slow down, and slowing down doesn't mean no physical activity, but being extremely present into what I'm doing and not up in my head. So that's how I use it as a strategy. And what I notice is when I do slow down, for example, this morning I was in the tub, I did a talk yesterday, and I really feel like that what I'm doing in the outside world is really super aligning with my core. And I feel, again, grateful right now and appreciative of you because you've been through this journey with me intimately. And you've held such amazing space and watched me as this alignment has been taking place. And I sat in the bathtub this morning and was just really present and feeling into that alignment. And I cried so hard. Just the humbled in awe and that heart blown open cry, right? That you do from just really feeling the joy of life. So I believe that Gay is right, because whenever I slowed down and got in the bath and was reflecting, all of these emotions started just like pouring out of my heart and my being. And that's literally carried me through the day. So it has been this really slippery lubricant that, of course, carried me right into this call with you in perfect timing.
Of course. What a beautiful scene, and the way you've articulated it and through Gay. The other point you made about you realize if you're not feeling appreciation, you're usually going too fast, or if there's that kind of deficit of gratitude, it's the speed. And that's a really interesting connection that I've never thought about before, but gosh, it makes so much sense. I think I can use that like literally today, so perfect timing. And let's talk a little bit about past seasons in your life. And for listeners who are maybe new to the show, Suzy Batiz has been on the show many times. And her first time on the show, she shared all of her story, which is pretty incredible journey. So please go back and listen if you haven't already. But there have been some dark times. And would you say gratitude played a role in the time, let's say, one of your bankruptcies or during these phases of feeling kind of at rock bottom?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't believe I was in a space of even allowing gratitude. I first had to feel. I really had to feel. I had to learn to feel. I had really numbed myself out in my life to where I wasn't feeling anything. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel my anger. I didn't feel my sadness. I definitely didn't feel rage that had built up inside of me. So it was sort of like I was flatlined through life. And once I was able to really start, once I filed bankruptcy and again slowed down where I had that clean slate and really got to start looking at pieces, that's when gratitude just, like, I didn't have to try gratitude. I literally was so humbled and grateful. You know, that whole saying, like, where you say, you know, you get dropped to your knees. You know, it was that moment of just really being in awe. And that was a natural, authentic gratitude, you know, that just came out of me actually feeling. So I believe that first, when I've never even thought about this before. You know, we can use gratitude as a strategy, like, oh, I'm so grateful for you. And I hired someone at work, and I hear her doing that, and it feels good. Yet sometimes there's something that feels inauthentic about it. So I'm a huge advocate in not having gratitude just for gratitude's sake, but really digging in and finding what you are truly appreciative of and spending even that little space of time. And it can take 10 seconds. For example, when we got on, what I felt was authentic was appreciating you for being on this journey with me, right? I could say, like, oh my God, thank you so much, Amy Jo, for having this. It's so wonderful what you're doing. And that's still great as well. But whenever we can take that time and really dive into that place of where it's authentic connection, authentic alignment with our own truth, is where I think that's the lubricant that I'm talking about of gratitude, because that is truth. And it's not just some fluffy, you know, the world's great and you're so wonderful and we're all great. You know, we have a lot of that. But I believe that, yeah, it's the slowing down and really connecting in and finding those gems of what we are truly grateful for that help shift that energy and that flow. So, yeah, I mean, I think it does help. You know, it helps a little, you know, to say those things, because it's when you're not feeling grateful, it's better than nothing, right? But if really you can sit down and say, I feel like I'm in a shithole right now. You know, my life sucks. Everything is horrible. You know, some people would say, well, you need to say, you know, commit to make yourself believe you have a wonderful life. I believe that if you go back and if you can really name 3 things that you are truly, truly to your core grateful for, and that could be, I'm grateful that I was able to take a breath without thinking about it, or I'm grateful that my legs work. Right? It doesn't have to be sexy, but if you can start finding those pieces of where you are authentically grateful, then that's also a lubricant into more gratitude.
It's almost like there's kind of a potential facade of gratitude, even if it isn't intentional. There's kind of the outside, and then there's the inside gratitude. And I think about my mom, who just practices gratitude, I think, every moment of her life, really. And she used to talk about, if I were in a bad mood or something shitty happened, she'd say, oh, you should make a gratitude list. Just write down a couple things you're grateful. And I'd be like, kind of, you know, younger, eye rolling, sure, Mom, and think I should do that. I know I should be grateful. And then it really clicked several years ago when I realized, even physiologically, I feel different when I internally process what I appreciate and what I'm genuinely grateful for. And that's kind of what I mean by strategy, and knowing how much of I'm going to call you expert, you are in energy. What would you say is the relationship between gratitude and energy? Because I've heard, and I've researched this a bit online, that physiologically we can't feel fear and gratitude at the same time, which is fascinating. So if we're scared of something, it technically is a strategy to think about what you're grateful for.
Yeah, wow, that's such a great distinction. I'm reminded of when Dr. Bruce Lipton told me that a cell can either be in growth mode or protection mode, and it cannot be in both of those states at the same time. So that's very much, and I think of gratitude as a growing, right? It's an expansive energy, and fear is that protection mode. So,
exactly.
So that it makes sense that even down to the level of cell, that every living organism, every living cell in our body can only be in one of those two places. I really appreciate your research and that distinction. Yeah, so I do believe that like it's really hard when you're in that much fear to have true gratitude, but that's kind of what I mean by slowing down. And I appreciate your mother when she said you need to write that down, and also the teenage you who said like, yeah, right, mom, and I've been in those places where like I can't be grateful for anything, but there's something about just really slowing down and going inside and digging. And when you can really find that, okay, I'm grateful for that. It's like a little sip of air. It's like you've been out of air and okay, I've got a little sip and then a little sip and a little sip. And I believe that creates even that little tiny bit of authentic, for example, like my legs work right now, right?
Yes.
It doesn't seem like it creates energy, but that little bit is enough to maybe get you to another gratitude that's a little bit bigger and then a little bit bigger. And I really see it as almost this Taurus-like energy where your entire reality or your perception of that reality can change based on how much of that gratitude that you feel and how much that energy you start diving into. It's like the more you dive into it, authentically aligning with yourself, the more expansive it is. And then all of a sudden your entire world changes. Like, have you ever thought like the worst thing in the world is happening and then somehow you get on a coaching call, like you call me or you call someone and then your entire world changes after that?
Yes,
Like
absolutely. Yes.
It's like, how does that happen? Like literally your reality has completely shifted. Yeah, but that's because you aligned and you were grateful for that feeling. You found some piece of gratitude that literally changed your entire perspective. So when people say like you be the change and you change the world, like in that moment, I believe you really changed your world.
Absolutely.
You changed your perspective of your world at that moment. It's radical how that happens. And I love it.
It is fascinating how quickly it can happen too. As we head into the holidays, do you have any rituals with your family around gratitude or sharing? I've dined with you enough at your home that it seems like every experience, well, it's extremely experiential all the time, but every time we sit down as a group with whoever we're with, there's this just feeling of kind of sharing, and you exude this outside of Thanksgiving and the holidays all the time, and it's truly a practice. But is there anything that you do during the holidays that is just kind of a tradition?
Yeah, we definitely do an appreciation circle. So each person goes around the room appreciating generally the other people at the table for whatever, finding that true alignment appreciation. And then they also appreciate themselves, like on where they're at in the journey from last Thanksgiving to this Thanksgiving. What do you appreciate yourself for? So there are two different circles that we do. And it's really amazing. Again, it's that stopping and slowing down just a little bit. And whenever we slow down and do that, it makes everything more delicious. Like literally the food is more delicious. So I love it. I keep hearing Gay say it's the lubricant for joy, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you slow down and dive into that gratitude and appreciation, it's like that whole space. And that's what you've experienced at dinner. It's that slowing down and connecting that really, it creates a more delicious meal. I doubt the food's any better than anywhere else, but it's the experience and it's that energetic field that we're creating in connection with each other that just makes it more delicious.
This is so amazing, all of this insight. Thank you, Suzy. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're bringing to the world. I appreciate how you're always, I know you pretty well. I appreciate your courage and willing to step up. You're always willing to have those conversations like, okay, let's go here. I think when I first met you, like, you were like, I don't know about this. And then you're always like, come on, bring it. So what I appreciate, let's get down to the alignment. I appreciate how you are willing to remove any preconceived notion that or belief system that you have that gets in the way of your own evolution.
You always leave me speechless. It's just always processing, and it's amazing how oftentimes I think to myself, what would Suzy say? And actually, it's more of what would Suzy ask, because the questions are what you use to guide me as your mentee, and you just guide, so many of us. So I appreciate you sharing your guidance. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment, and it means a ton to us. Also, after recording more than 100 episodes, I've created a bit of a cheat sheet on the top 5 things I've learned from renegades and how they get from idea to action, from dreaming to doing. I will email you the downloadable PDF when you subscribe to my newsletter. Just head to amyjomartin.com and click on Connect with Me. If you want to hear more from Suzy, follow her on Instagram at Suzy Batiz, SUZYBATIZ. Okay, so I asked the private Facebook group for Why Not Now. If you're not in there with us, please join us. Lots going on in there. And the discussion is pretty ripe. I asked everyone, do you use gratitude as a strategy? And I have to share some of these ideas with you because they are so good. And if you have ideas too, please go in and share because I can't think of anything better to give than some advice on how to feel appreciation. So here we are, or to express appreciation, I guess I should say. So the first suggestion I'm going to read is from Bobby Sue Doyle Hazard. So she said when she has trouble falling asleep, and this has been a problem that she's had since she was a kid, her therapist taught her about gratitude ABCs. So she said, basically, as I'm laying in bed trying to fall asleep, I think of something that I'm grateful for to match each letter of the alphabet. She said, I usually only get to around H, but it's a nice way to add gratitude into each of my days, even if it's A is for air, B is for bacon, C is for cats. And she said, by the way, C is always for cats. And C could be for candy corn too, Bobby, just by the way. Okay, that's smart. I know that there have been times where I definitely go into these droughts of being able to fall asleep, and I'm going to try that one. So thanks, Bobby. I also love this other suggestion by Morgan Martinez. They said, whenever I hire someone, I always ask how they like to receive praise. Some people say they like to receive praise face-to-face. Some like a simple email with no one copied. Some like it to be announced. Every person is different. But if you're going to thank someone, it's best to do it the way they like it. Brilliant. Everybody kind of has their own flavor of how they like to receive praise. So that makes total sense, especially in the workplace, especially as a manager, even with children, I imagine, having multiple kids and knowing how each of them like to be appreciated is pretty darn valuable. And Ruth Ann Jensen, yes, my mother is in the private Facebook group too, so you can be exposed to her wisdom if you join us there. She said, when life is not going as planned, I make a gratitude list and it helps me regain some perspective. Yep, it truly does work. And Lindsay Jones said that she practices gratitude before she even opens her eyes in the morning, before she gets out of bed. She makes a list in her mind of everything that she's grateful for, and it shifts her energy and sets the tone for her day before she's even gotten out of bed, which I think is huge. Richard Greer has also shared something similar, and he confessed that he actually borrowed this from Oprah, that every morning when he wakes up, he says, thank you for waking up. Thank you for giving me this day. I am grateful. And he has also set a calendar reminder every morning just in case he forgets. And he finds that his attitude is more positive from the get-go. So those are just a few examples. There are many more in the private Facebook group. And as you can imagine, there are so many different ways to apply this. And so as we approach the holidays and Thanksgiving and have these family gatherings, I think it's important to think about like micro moments of gratitude and year-long daily practice versus just having a big dinner and feeling grateful and it's a flash in the pan. And then the next day, that subsides. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of a reframe, a reset on gratitude, appreciation, whatever you want to call it, because it has helped me tremendously over the last couple of years. And something that I used to think was kind of a soft concept and something I should do, be grateful, shouldn't we all, has turned into something I look forward to doing and choose to do because I see how much it actually brings to my life in a strategic way, too. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time, and until then, why not now?